Good morning, dear students. Today we start with another unit, that is the last unit of your syllabus, paper number 7. Okay, and the name of this unit is membrane permeation. And essentially what we are going to learn here is the structure and the function of the biological membrane, especially with respect to the transport of different molecules. Okay, especially the nutrient molecules. Before going to the more details about the structure, we would first like to know what is the importance of the biological membrane. I'll admit a couple of students who are waiting in the waiting room. Okay, I think you are all aware about some of these important functions of the membrane. One is they define the external boundaries of the cell. Okay, that is for two things. One is the protection of the cell. Okay, protection of the inner components of the cell, the cytoplasm. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the most important thing is about the protection of the cell. They make good boundaries for the cell. And not only that, but as you all know, that a boundary is not just a passive wall. Okay, it has to be a dynamic structure. That is to say, the different types of molecules will either enter the cell, or certain type of molecules will leave the cell. Okay, that is excretion from the cell. So both these things must happen essentially through the membrane. Okay, and therefore it is not just a passive wall. In my next slide, I have written that they are not just passive barriers like a wall. Okay, but it is like two neighbors who are staying together in a particular, you can say, building, or in on a plot of land, and there is a boundary, no doubt, between them, but across the boundary there are certain things going on, some interactions are going on. Maybe you have something to give them or offer them, and something to even receive from them, isn't it? So good, if the boundary is good, then the neighbors also will remain good to each other. Okay, so it's something like that. They regulate the molecular traffic across the boundary. That is, different types of molecules, either they enter into the cell or they leave the cell. Not only that, but two cells which are close to each other in the vicinity, they would communicate with each other. So that communication also is through the membrane. Okay, and not only that, but not only the external boundaries of the cell, but even the internal organelles of the cell, for especially for the eukaryotic cell, the plant cells and the animal cells, the intracellular organelles are also defined by the membrane. Okay, and those membranes are also important for different types of interaction, different type of metabolic reaction that are happening. So one thing is the compartmentation of different molecules in the cell. So certain essential functions are carried out by biomolecules within a particular organelle. And if there is no such separation, then probably there would be a chaos in the cell. Okay. But the primitive forms of life, that is the bacterial cell, they do not have the internal organelles, and therefore whatever is happening in the cell, all metabolic reactions are happening inside the cytoplasm. Okay, where there is no separation of the different components and different reactions. Okay, then one thing we have seen that was very important, we have already studied 3 units that were related to the energy metabolism. Okay, photosynthesis, respiration, and chemolithotrophy. So all these things are essentially happening in the membrane. Okay, I hope you remember that, right? And yeah, this I have already told you. The signal transduction process, that is the cell to cell communication, happens in the eukaryotic cells, multicellular organisms, as well as the bacterial cells, where probably you have heard about this phenomenon of what is it called, quorum sensing. Have you heard this name anytime? Quorum sensing? Yes or no? Aishwarya?
No, sir.
No. Shamim?
No, sir.
Pragati, quorum sensing, Quorum, quorum sensing.
Yes, sir. I am.
Yes, Shubhangi. So what is that?
Sir, bacterial cell communicate with each other.
I couldn't hear you properly. Probably there is a net problem, but what I get from get something out of what you are saying. She is trying to say that there is some sort of a communication between the bacterial cells. So although they are single-celled organisms, the different cells are actually communicating with each other for certain things. Okay, that is maybe signaling each other about a favorable condition in a particular location, or maybe they are also talking to each other about unfavorable conditions, unfavorable environmental factors, and therefore they would like to either go away from that place by chemotaxis, or they would want to go to a particular place, okay, by motility. So that is all depending upon the intercellular communication or cell to cell communication. Okay, and that communication also happens because of certain molecules which are present in the biological membranes. Okay, and then one more important property, or one more important function of a bacterial of a biological membrane is that it is a flexible structure. Okay, and that flexibility allows the cells to grow in size. Okay, that flexibility also helps the cell to divide. Okay, cell division, and that flexibility is also important for the movement of the organism. For example, amoeba is a very classical example where you know that there is a membrane, you can say extension, okay, extension of the membrane, and that extension actually helps in the movement of amoeba, isn't it? And then one more thing is about the self-sealing property, that is certain things will go out of the membrane or certain things can come inside the membrane, and that is by dissolution of a part of the membrane and then again resealing that part. Okay, so whatever is unwanted goes out of the cell, or something comes into the cell by a small, you can say, formation of a small pore in the membrane. Okay, but that is flexibility, that is also because of the flexibility of the membrane. Okay, and then one more important thing that we are going to study in this syllabus is about the entry of certain ions or molecules inside the cell. Okay, or even the excretion of certain metabolic end products which are not required for by the cell. And of course we are not going to study that part in more detail. Okay, but influx of certain molecules and ions that we are going to study here in this particular unit. So that actually comes, all these things actually come in this under the topic of membrane dynamics, because membrane is not just a passive structure, but it is a dynamically active structure, we can say. And because of the activity of the membrane, we have so many different things which are happening in the cell. Okay, so then I come to this point that these are not just passive barriers, or it is not like a wall which is made up of bricks. Okay, but there are many types of different proteins which are associated with the membrane. Either these proteins are inside the membrane, or they are just on the periphery of the membrane, loosely attached to the membrane. Okay, some of the proteins are actually moving within the membrane. Okay, so they can move in the membrane, they are soluble in the membrane. And some of these proteins would include, for example, the surface proteins like the transporters, the channels, and the pores. These are the proteins which allow the entry of specific solids. We have already seen the example of FO, F1 ATPase, if you remember that. And then we have also seen that the FO part, which is the membrane spanning part, okay, that is what actually forms a small pore or a channel in the membrane, and through this channel the protons are being transported from one side of the membrane to the other side of the membrane. And in that particular process there is another part which is associated, and that is called as F1 subunit. And this F1 subunit changes the conformation because of the energy which is carried by the proton movement. Okay, and that energy is used to convert ADP into ATP. So that is also very interesting thing that we have seen. The mechanism also we have studied. Okay, so there are such proteins which are present for different molecules, the uptake of different types of molecules. For example, sugar molecules are there, or maybe certain metal ions are also transported across the membrane. Okay, on all of that activity requires the presence and active involvement of proteins which are called as either the transporter proteins or the channel proteins, or there are porins in the membrane. It's very simple structures. Okay, then there are receptors on the surface on the membrane, and these receptors actually bind to certain kinds of molecules which are also called as ligands. Okay, and the binding of the ligands to the receptors will cause a certain kind of a signal to be transmitted across the membrane, and that signal will help the cell to undertake certain kind of activity. It may be the differentiation also. Okay, for example, the RBCs and WBCs develop in the blood, isn't it? You might be knowing the differentiation of the cell, that is the stem cells, primitive stem cells into the different types of cells, maybe the monocytes or lymphocytes or basophils or acidophils, all the different types of cells you have already studied. Okay, so the development or differentiation of the cells is also because of the receptors which are there on the membrane. And when they get the proper kind of signal, then the cells will start differentiating. Okay, so that is also a very important thing about the membrane. And of course, in this particular unit, we are not going to study all of these activities, but we are only restricting ourselves to the movement of molecules or transport of the molecules across the membranes. Then this is the thing which we have already studied, that is the different types of energy transduction mechanisms. Okay, chloroplast, mitochondria, or bacterial membranes, they take part actively in either photosynthesis, respiration, aerobic or anaerobic respiration, and they also take part in chemolithotrophy. And essentially that has something to do with the transport of electrons through the electron transport chain. And we have seen that most of the components are actually within the membrane. Okay, and therefore membrane is the site for all these energy transduction reactions that are happening in the cell. Okay, then coming to the membrane structure. The membrane structure, if you look at it in an electron microscope, like the image which is shown here is a transmission electron micrograph. Okay, and that electron micrograph shows that it is actually a trilamellar structure. Okay, it is a bilayer. Membrane is a bilayer. That is, there are two, you can say, two layers of lipids, okay, which are actually positioned in such a way that the head groups are facing outside, the tail groups are facing inside. The tail groups are hydrophobic, so they will always go to the innermost region, and the head groups which are hydrophilic will tend to come out and associate with the water molecules. Okay, and because of that, you see that there are electron dense regions on the two, you can say, margins. Okay, electron dense regions, and inside is the electron rare region. Okay, electron light region. Okay, so dark regions outside and light region inside. That actually makes it appear to be like a tri-layer structure. Okay, but essentially it is a membrane bilayer. Okay, that is two layers of lipids which are close to each other. Okay, adjacent to each other. Right. So this is how you can see it under the microscope. Okay, electron microscope. This dark layer, then a light layer, and then there is a third dark layer. So trilamellar structure. And then if you would ever measure the dimensions, then it is a rather very thin membrane. Okay, the total width, you can say, is say only about 5 to 8 nanometer. You know how much is a nanometer? How much is a nanometer?
10 to the power -9.
What? What -9? Kilometer? Ten to the
10
power
to -9 meter.
-9 meter. Okay, so that is a very small unit, you can say. Okay, so just 5 nanometer to 8 nanometer, and it has so many interesting properties. Okay, in fact, if you have ever heard about this new field of science, that is nanotechnology. Have you heard about that word? Nanotechnology?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that deals with all the objects which are in the size of nanometer, few nanometers, that is say 1 nanometer to about 100 nanometers. And the interesting thing about these materials is that when the size gets smaller than 100 nanometer, then their properties change very drastically. And there are examples in biology everywhere. You will find that there are structures which are of the nanometer dimension. Even the ATP synthase enzyme that we have seen also has a nanometric dimension. And if you look at the flagellar motor in the bacteria, even that is in the nanometric dimension. And because of that kind of dimension, these molecules have very, very interesting properties, and therefore they are functional molecules in biological cells. Okay, so similarly, the structure of membrane is also very thin. It is in the nanometer range, okay, 5 to 8 nanometers, and it has interesting properties which we are going to study. Okay. Then let us go to the next part that talks about the chemical composition or biochemical composition of the membranes. There are essentially 3 types of biomolecules in the membrane. One is the lipid, the other is protein, and the third is carbohydrate. Okay, so all the 3 components are there, but the relative amounts of these components vary in the different membranes. For example, the neuronal cell membrane or the liver cell membrane or RBC membrane, they will have a variation in the relative abundance of each of these components. That is one thing. And the actual type of the lipid or actual type of proteins or carbohydrates which are present in the different membranes are also different. Okay, so type of biomolecules and their composition, their amounts will vary according to the function of a particular cell. Okay, but essentially all the 3 components are present in the different types of membranes. Okay, the lipid and the proteins actually form a large part of the biological membrane. And then I have told you that these molecules are not just passively sitting in the membrane, but they are very dynamic molecules. They can actually move within the membrane. They can change their conformation in the membrane. And that is why they are able to perform certain functions. And those functions are the specific property of that particular membrane, cell membrane. Okay. Then, for example, the carbohydrates usually are of the glycoprotein or glycolipid type. That is, with the carbohydrates, we have proteins associated or lipids associated. And for example, if you look at the myelin sheath of the neuronal cells, then they contain primarily lipids. And then if you would look at the mitochondrial membranes or bacterial membranes, then there are more proteins compared to the lipids. Okay, and that is because they have to carry out some essential functions. Okay, then if you look at the plasma membrane, there is more cholesterol. Okay, and there is no cardiolipin. But if you look at the hepatocyte mitochondrial inner membrane, then the composition is reverse composition. That is, the cardiolipin part is more, okay, and cholesterol is less. If you look at the rod cells in the eyes, okay, then that is in the retina, then about 90% of the plasma membrane is a pigment which is called rhodopsin. Okay, and if you look at the RBC membrane, then there is a large proportion of specific type of proteins which are called as the transporters. Okay, so what I want to tell you from this information is that different types of cells will have different membranes, that is different membrane composition. Okay, and that essentially depends upon the type of function that particular cell has to perform. Then the sugar moieties which are present in the glycoproteins of the membrane, they are important for different things. That is the post-translational modifications of the protein, for example, the protein folding. Okay, then it also determines the stability of proteins. Okay, and most importantly, the sugar molecules are there to signal the localization of a particular protein. Okay, do you know what is localization of proteins? Have you studied that in immunology? Or maybe even in the when you studied the functions of the Golgi apparatus, Golgi bodies, or endoplasmic reticulum, there you might have probably studied that the proteins which are made in the cytoplasm, okay, by protein synthesis, these proteins are later converted by what is called as post-translational modification. That is, some sugar moieties are attached to them. And because of these sugar moieties, the proteins are directed to a particular site in the cell, okay, or in a membrane. Okay, so for example, you probably know that the antibody molecules are present in the B cells, isn't it? Do you know that? B cells make the antibodies. Now, in many of the of these cells, the antibodies are actually displayed on the surface of the cell. Do you know that? Have you studied that in immunology?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So this particular targeting of the protein, that is to determine where the protein has to go. Okay, whether on the outside of the membrane they are displaced, or whether they are displayed as the receptor molecules on the surface of the membrane, or whether they are the transmembrane proteins. Okay, that is within the membrane, or whether they are associated with the membrane but from the inside of the membrane, that is in the cytoplasmic part. Okay, so all that particular thing, that is the localization of the membrane, is determined by which type of sugar is attached to the membrane. Even if you have studied about the antigenic proteins on the RBC, for example, okay, antigens of the RBC, that is those which are responsible for the determination of the blood groups, okay, blood group proteins. So those proteins also have characteristic types of sugar moieties. Okay, these are antigenic, therefore these proteins are antigenic in nature. Okay, so localization or placement of the proteins is because of the sugar molecules. And if the lipids are attached to the proteins, then these lipids are actually there for the firm anchorage of the proteins in the membrane. Okay, so those proteins which have a certain part of associated with the lipids, then the lipids are there to actually anchor the protein within the membrane, because the lipids are soluble in the membrane. Okay, that is, they can go well along with the membrane, and therefore they can firmly attach the protein in the membrane. Okay, so that is about the chemistry of the membranes. Okay, and then I have already told you that the membrane appears trilaminar, okay, or trilamellar. That is, it appears that they have 3 layers, but actually if you look at them chemically, then there are 2 layers of the lipids. Okay, and then this is one of the most important thing about the membrane, that is, they are usually impermeable to polar or charged solutes. Okay, and also the thing that they are selectively permeable, that is, certain types of molecules or ions will be allowed to pass through the membrane, but some of them will not be allowed. Especially the large molecules are not allowed to directly enter the membrane. Okay, so that is what we say as selective permeability of the membrane. Okay, and in this particular unit, we are actually going to learn more about the permeation of the membrane, that is to say, how the different types of molecules are allowed to cross the membrane. Okay, what are the mechanisms which are there in the membrane which allow the entry or exit of molecules from the membrane. Okay, and then one more important characteristic of the membrane is that it is a fluid in nature. Okay, so although it appears to be a wall-like barrier which is protecting the cell, it is not a solid structure. Okay, it is actually a fluid structure, and therefore you see that there are certain molecules in the membrane which can actually float in the membrane. Okay, so that actually tells us that it is a fluid-like structure. Okay, and therefore this is also called as the fluid model of the membrane. And I want you all to find out who gave this particular hypothesis about the fluid characteristic of the membrane. And then I also want you to write down what are the different models of the membrane. Do you remember, have you studied that? The different models of the membrane which are given by different scientists.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what
Yes,
are,
sir.
can you name some?
Fluid
Emil
mosaic
Fischer,
model.
Yes.
which is given by Emil Fischer.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I just want everybody to write down a short description of the different models of the membrane. That would be very important for you from the examination point of view. Okay, so since you have been studying it right from your school days, I think, structure of the membrane. So I'm not going to describe that here in these lectures. Okay, then I have already told you about the phospholipid bilayer. Okay, the polar head groups are facing outside, and non-polar or hydrophobic groups are inside. Okay, and that is essentially what gives rise to the trilamellar structure of the membrane under the electron microscope. Okay, then there are proteins which are embedded in the bilayer, and these proteins are held by hydrophobic interaction. So there are hydrophobic amino acids in the proteins. There are hydrophilic amino acids in the protein. And interestingly, what we find is that the hydrophobic amino acids in the protein are all associated with the membrane part. Okay, and that is how there is a kind of a firm attachment of the membrane proteins with the membrane. Okay, it is by virtue of the hydrophobic amino acids, right? Then this is an important term that is the asymmetry of the membrane. Okay, and by this particular term, we actually mean the arrangement of different proteins in the membrane, the arrangement of different kinds of biomolecules in the membrane, within the membrane. And by virtue of that arrangement of the different molecules, the membrane will have certain functions. Okay, so there is asymmetry at two levels. One is called as the structural level. Okay, so that is structural asymmetry, and the other type of asymmetry is called as the functional asymmetry. Okay, that is to say that the two sides of the membrane, the inside of the membrane and the outside of the membrane, they have different proteins altogether. Okay, proteins which are present on the outside of the membrane are not essentially present on the inside of the membrane. Not only that, but if you're talking about a particular protein which is there inside the membrane, the part which is facing the outside and the part which is facing the cytoplasm, these two parts are actually different than each other. They cannot be exactly the same parts or same domains. Okay, I hope you know the word domain or subunit. Okay, so those subunits which are on the inside are not on the outside. The domains on the outside are not on the inside. And in fact, you know that every polypeptide has two ends. One is the carboxyl end and the other is the amino end. Okay, so for a particular protein, maybe the amino end is on the outside, the carboxyl end is on the inside. And for some other protein, the amino end will be on the inside and carboxyl will be on the outside. Okay, so that kind of asymmetry is always there, and that is there because the protein has a particular role to play, it has a particular function, and because of the asymmetrical arrangement of different proteins, even the function of different proteins in the membrane is also different. Okay, so that actually gives rise to a phenomenon called the sidedness. Okay, sidedness of the protein means that proteins on the inside are never on the outside, and proteins that are on the outside are never on the inside. And there is no symmetry as such in the membrane with regard to the arrangement of the proteins. Okay, and the types of proteins which are present in the membrane. So is that clear to everybody? Have you all understood what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
sir.
these technical terms are very important. Okay, there might be questions based on these terms in the exam. It will be an objective exam, but then you should be able to describe what is asymmetry of the membrane, what is structural asymmetry, what is functional asymmetry. Okay, so your knowledge about these terms will be probed in that examination. Okay, both internal examination as well as external examination, university examination. Okay, so try to take care of that, try to be attentive, and try to understand the various terms as we encounter them in this particular unit. Yeah, then this is an important slide which tells you about how the membrane proteins are isolated. I'm not going to describe the procedure of isolating the membrane that you will get from any kind of a journal or any book, okay, or a practical manual. But here what I'm trying to tell you is only one important thing, and that is there are different types of proteins in the membrane. Some of the proteins are tightly integrated within the membrane. Can you see this particular protein here, yellow colored? You will find that it is completely spanning the membrane from one side of the membrane to the other side of the membrane. It is completely spanning the membrane. Okay, and this kind of a protein is called as an integrated protein. Can you see that, everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It is also called as an integral protein. Integral protein or integrated protein actually mean one and the same. Okay. The problem is there with these proteins. Okay. If you want to isolate the proteins, then there should be harsh treatments. Okay. These proteins cannot come out of the membrane very easily. Certain harsh treatments are required to be given. For example, what is called, we can use what is called as chaotropic agents. So chaotropic agents are those which disturb the membrane alignment, okay, membrane arrangement, and sometimes these agents might also destroy the membrane. Okay, so unless we break the membrane, these proteins cannot come out, right? So these are tightly integrated proteins, and there are certain proteins which are on the periphery of the membrane. You can see this one. Okay, it is associated with the membrane, no doubt, but the association is very weak. And therefore, by using certain mild treatments like some detergents, you can say, okay, mild detergents, of course, these proteins can be easily removed. Okay, even a slight change in the pH, okay, slight change in maybe your buffer, salt concentration of your buffer used for isolating the protein. Okay, with that slight modification in your buffer, these proteins can be easily removed from the membrane. So these are called as peripheral proteins. Okay, and those proteins which require very strong detergents, or they require chaotropic agents for the removal, or some agents which might lyse the membrane or damage the membrane. Okay, those proteins are called as the integral proteins. You can see it here. The part of the membrane, the red color part is the membrane. So you have actually broken down the membrane, okay, piece of a membrane, and along with that piece of a membrane, this protein has been removed from the membrane. Okay, and now this particular protein is covered with the detergent. Okay, it is covered with the detergent. Okay, and then there are certain proteins which can be removed by the action of enzymes. Okay, for example, this is a GPI linked protein, that is glycophosphoinositol linked protein, and this is also integrated with the membrane, although it is not completely spanning the membrane, but it is inserted within the membrane. And this protein can be isolated by using an enzyme. For example, they have shown here phospholipase C. Okay, so this particular enzyme is a lipase, lipolytic enzyme. So by breaking the lipid bonds, okay, this particular protein has been removed. Okay, so have you followed this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, then I think I have just maybe 1 or 2 minutes remaining for this lecture. And okay, there are certain slides which I wanted to complete, but doesn't matter. I'm not going to continue with the lecture again. Okay, so when it gets over, we all go home or stay at home without another lecture of mine. And if there is any other lecture by any other faculty member, then you can join that lecture. Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever number of slides I can finish now, I will try to finish, and I'll not join again. Okay, so these are the 3 different types of lipid aggregates that we can actually have in a system. Okay, so for example, because the lipids are amplified,